In today's podcast, you will learn English in a simple, natural, and effective way. Not through rules, not through memorization, but through a real and inspiring story. A story of a young girl who started her life with fear, financial struggle, and uncertainty. A girl who did not have an easy path, but slowly, step by step, began to change her life, and over time, she transformed herself into one of the most powerful and successful artists in the world. This is the story of Nicki Minaj. And as you listen carefully, you will not only improve your English speaking and listening, but you will also understand how mindset, discipline, and belief can completely change a person's journey. So stay with the story, listen with focus, because this is not just English practice, this is learning through a real life that changed everything. Nicki Minaj was born on December 8, 1982, in a small place called St. James in Trinidad and Tobago. Her real name is Onika Tanya Maraj. In her early years, life did not feel simple or peaceful. Her father, Robert Maraj, had a difficult personality and there were many tense moments at home. Her mother, Carol Maraj, tried her best to protect her children and keep the family together. When Nicki was still very young, she moved to Queens, New York. This place was very different. The streets were louder, faster, and full of energy. But inside her home, things were not always calm. Because of this, Nicki started spending more time inside her own mind. She began to imagine different lives. Sometimes she would act like a completely different person with a new voice, a new attitude, a new story. These small moments gave her comfort. They made her feel safe. Slowly, without realizing it, she was building something powerful, her creativity. As she grew older, she joined Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts. This school was full of students who loved performing. Nicki chose acting. She loved being on stage. She loved expressing emotions. And for the first time, she felt like people could actually see her. In these early years, she was still just a young girl trying to understand her life. But inside her, something was growing quietly, a voice, a personality, and a desire to become more than her surroundings. This quiet beginning became the first step of her journey. After finishing school, Nicki Minaj stepped into a new phase of life. But this phase was not easy. She had dreams inside her, but her reality was very different. She needed money, stability, and a way to survive in a fast city like New York City. So she started working small jobs. One of her jobs was as a waitress, but she did not enjoy it. She felt restricted, like she was living someone else's life, not her own. Nicki had a strong personality. She spoke honestly, and she did not like being controlled. Because of this, she lost many jobs again and again. Each time she lost a job, it created stress, but it also made something inside her stronger. She began to understand one thing clearly. A normal life was not meant for her. She wanted more, something bigger, something meaningful. During this time, Nicki started focusing more on music. She began writing her own raps slowly and privately. Her words came from her thoughts, her frustration, and her deep desire to change her life. She would spend hours thinking about lyrics, about rhythm, about how she could sound different from everyone else. Sometimes she would record herself, listen again, and improve. There was no big support, no big opportunity, just her and her belief. She was building herself quietly, step by step. She also faced rejection. Many people did not take her seriously. Some thought she was too bold, too different, too expressive. But instead of stopping, Nicki used this as fuel. Every no she heard made her more determined. Slowly, her direction became clear. She was not just trying anymore, she was preparing. This phase of her life was full of struggle, confusion, and pressure, but it was also building her mindset, a mindset that refused to settle and believed her life was going to change. During this time, Nicki Minaj was no longer just searching, she was slowly transforming. She understood that talent alone was not enough. She needed a strong identity, something people would remember. So, Onika Tanya Maraj began to create a new version of herself. She chose the name Nicki Minaj, a name that sounded bold, different, and powerful. This was not just a name change, it was the beginning of a new personality. She started developing her style, not only in music, but also in how she expressed herself. Nicki experimented with different voices, sometimes soft, sometimes aggressive, sometimes playful. She could switch characters within seconds, and this made her stand out. At the same time, she began working seriously on her music. She recorded songs and started releasing mixtapes. In 2007, she released her first mixtape, Playtime is Over. It was raw, energetic, and full of hunger. People in the underground music scene started noticing her. But she did not stop there. In 2008, she released another mixtape, Sucker Free. This project showed growth. Her confidence was stronger, her delivery was sharper, and her identity was becoming clearer. Nicki was not trying to fit in, she was trying to be different. Her style, her voice, and her attitude were all unique. Some people were confused by it, but others were impressed. She was slowly building attention, not through luck, but through consistent effort. Every song she created, every line she wrote was helping her move one step forward. This phase of her life was not about fame yet. It was about building, experimenting, and discovering who she really was as an artist. And now, for the first time, Nicki Minaj was no longer hidden. She was starting to be seen, and more importantly, she was starting to be remembered. As Nicki Minaj continued to grow in the underground music world, her work started reaching the right people. Slowly, her name was spreading, and her effort was beginning to open new doors. One of the most important moments in her journey came when Lil Wayne noticed her talent. He saw something unique in her style, her confidence, and her ability to switch voices and energy so quickly. At that time, Lil Wayne was already a big name in hip-hop, and he was building his label, Young Money Entertainment. When he decided to support Nicki, it became a major turning point in her life. In 2009, she officially joined Young Money. This was her first real step into the mainstream music industry. Now, she was no longer working alone. She had a platform, a team, and bigger opportunities in front of her. After joining the label, Nicki started appearing in songs with other artists. She worked with Drake and Lil Wayne, and these collaborations helped her reach a wider audience. More people were hearing her voice, and more people were becoming curious about her. In the same year, she released another mixtape called Beam Me Up Scotty. This project became very popular, especially online. One of the standout tracks, Itty Bitty Piggy, showed her confidence, her wordplay, and her strong presence as a rapper. At this stage, Nicki was not just gaining attention, she was building momentum. Her name was starting to appear in bigger conversations, and people in the industry were beginning to take her seriously. This phase was full of movement, new connections, and growing recognition. She had finally stepped into a space where her talent could be seen on a larger scale. And for the first time, her journey was no longer limited to small circles. It was expanding, reaching further, and moving faster than ever before. As Nicki Minaj entered the mainstream music world, everything around her started changing quickly. The attention was growing, the expectations were rising, and now she had to prove herself on a much bigger stage. In 2010, she released her first studio album, Pink Friday. This was a very important moment in her career because this album would decide how the world saw her, not just as a new artist, but as a serious name in the industry. The album was a success. It reached #1 on the Billboard 200, and people all over the world started noticing her. Her music was different. It had energy, emotion, and a strong personality. One of the biggest songs from this album was Super Bass. This song became extremely popular. It was catchy, fun, and easy to remember. Many people who had never listened to rap before started listening to Nicki because of this song. With this success, Nicki Minaj achieved something very important. She became one of the most recognized female rappers in the world. In an industry that was mostly dominated by men, she created her own space. Her image also became iconic. Bright wigs, bold makeup, and a fearless attitude. She was not afraid to be different, and that made her stand out even more. At this stage, Nicki was no longer just building her career, she had arrived. She was now a global artist with millions of fans and a powerful presence in the music world. This phase was not just about success, it was about recognition, identity, and proving that she truly belonged at the top. After the success of Pink Friday, Nicki Minaj entered a new phase, where expectations became much higher. People were now watching her every move, and the pressure to stay at the top was constant. In 2012, she released her second album, Pink Friday Roman Reloaded. This album showed a different side of her. It was not only rap, but also included strong pop sounds. This decision surprised many people. One of the biggest songs from this album was Starships. It became a global hit and played everywhere, on radio, in clubs, and on television. The song reached a much wider audience, including people who did not usually listen to hip-hop. But this change also brought criticism. Some fans felt that Nicki was moving away from her original rap style. They wanted the same energy she had in her earlier mixtapes, and they were not ready for this new direction. Nicki understood this reaction, but she did not step back. She believed that an artist should grow and try new things instead of staying the same forever. During this time, she was also working with many big artists and performing on major stages. Her presence in the music industry was becoming even stronger. She was not just a rapper anymore. She was becoming a complete entertainer, someone who could move between styles and still stay relevant. This phase of her life was full of pressure, but also full of expansion. She was testing her limits, taking risks, and learning how to handle both success and criticism at the same time. And through all this, she continued moving forward without losing her confidence or her identity. As time moved forward, Nicki Minaj reached a point where she wanted her music to feel more real, more personal, and more connected to her own life. She was no longer trying to prove that she could succeed. Now she wanted to express who she truly was. In 2014, she released her third studio album, The Pink Print. This album had a deeper tone. It was not only about energy and style, but also about emotions, experiences, and personal thoughts. Through this album, Nicki showed a more honest side of herself. She spoke about relationships, challenges, and the pressure of being in the public eye. Her music felt more mature and more grounded. One of the most talked about songs from this album was Anaconda. The song gained massive attention and became a cultural moment. It showed her bold confidence and her ability to control attention on a global level. At the same time, Nicki continued to grow her presence outside of music. She became a judge on the show American Idol. This gave people a chance to see her personality in a different way, not just as an artist, but as someone with opinions, humor, and a strong presence. During this phase, Nicki was balancing two sides of herself. One side was powerful, bold, and full of energy. The other side was thoughtful, emotional, and reflective. This balance made her even more unique. She was not limited to one image or one style. She was evolving, not just as an artist, but as a person. And with this, her voice became stronger, not just in music, but in how she connected with people and how she expressed her truth. By this time, Nicki Minaj had already achieved global success. But staying at the top was not easy. The music industry was changing fast. New artists were rising, and competition was becoming stronger. Nicki understood that success is not only about reaching the top, it is also about staying there. She continued working, recording, and collaborating with different artists. Her presence in music remained strong. During these years, there were also moments of tension in the industry. Disagreements with other artists became public, and these situations brought a lot of attention. Some people supported her, while others criticized her. But Nicki did not allow these moments to stop her. She stayed focused on her work and continued building her career. In 2018, she released her fourth studio album, Queen. This album was a statement. It showed her confidence, her experience, and her belief in her own position in the industry. The album received mixed reactions. Some people praised it, while others expected something different. But even with this, Nicki proved that she was still a major force in music. She continued performing on big stages, connecting with her fans, and staying visible in the public eye. Her journey was no longer about proving she could succeed. It was about maintaining her place. This phase required strength, patience, and control. Because at the top, every move is watched, every decision is judged. And through all of this, Nicki Minaj remained steady, holding her position and refusing to fade away. After years of constant work, public attention, and a fast-moving career, Nicki Minaj reached a moment where her life began to change in a more personal way. In 2019, she married Kenneth Petty. This decision marked a new chapter, one that was more private and more focused on her personal world. For a long time, her life had been centered around music, performances, and public image. But now, her priorities were slowly shifting. In 2020, she became a mother. This moment brought a completely new feeling into her life. It was not about fame or success, but about responsibility, care, and family. Motherhood changed her daily life. Her schedule became different, her focus became calmer, and her energy moved away from constant public attention. She started spending more time at home, away from the spotlight, choosing peace over pressure. This phase was quieter, but very meaningful. It showed a different side of her personality, one that was more grounded, more patient, and more centered. Nicki was no longer thinking only about her career. She was thinking about her family, her child, and the kind of life she wanted to build outside of fame. This shift did not erase her past success, but it added something new to her identity, a deeper sense of purpose, beyond music, beyond the stage. Nicki Minaj's journey from a quiet beginning to global recognition is a story built on strength, creativity, and belief. She did not follow a simple path, and she did not depend on easy opportunities. She created her own way. Over the years, she changed how people see female rappers. In a space that was mostly controlled by men, she built a strong and independent identity. She showed that a woman can lead, create, and dominate in her own style. Her music, her image, and her personality all carried confidence. She was never afraid to stand out or to be different. Even when people did not understand her choices, she stayed true to herself. Many new artists, especially women, found inspiration in her journey. They saw that it was possible to break barriers and build a voice without fear. Nicki's story is not only about success, it is about transformation. A young girl who once lived in confusion slowly built clarity. A person who once escaped into imagination turned that imagination into reality. She faced challenges, pressure, and criticism, but she did not stop. She kept moving, step by step, building a life on her own terms. And that is what makes her journey powerful. It shows that where you start does not decide where you will end. With belief, effort, and courage, a person can change their path completely. Nicki Minaj did not just become famous, she became unforgettable.